Agree. Today we're gathered here to call for oversight of a criminal president, a highly corrupt individual who's unfit for office. And we're going to hear from a variety of speakers. We're going to explain to you why from a variety of different perspectives. The first speaker we'll hear today is from By the People. She's Alexandra Flores Quilty. I'll invite her to the stage now. Give her a round of applause.
Hello, New Yorkers! New York is in the house. Today, we are taking action joined by our fellow Americans from every single corner of the country. And I'm so happy to be here in community, us as New Yorkers, gathering today to take responsibility for our country and to demand an end to this administration. He has gotten away without being held accountable. He has violated the Constitution. He has broken the law. And he has attacked the rights and safety of everyday Americans. And we say enough is enough. We will not stand for this anymore. And yet, members of Congress, our elected representatives, have said it's not politically a good time to uphold the Constitution. How do we feel about it not being a good time to protect the safety of Americans, the people who call this country home? How do we feel about that? We say it's never a not good time to uphold the Constitution and protect American people. We will continue to see our elected members of Congress abdicate their responsibility and refuse to hold them accountable unless we, the people, take responsibility for our country. It is up to us. We cannot look any longer to those in power and expect them to save us. If we want to find out who's going to save us, I want us to look to each other right now, left to right, to our family members, to our neighbors, from Queens to Brooklyn to upstate New York. This is how we're going to win. Because when the people lead, politicians follow. Today is only the beginning. We gather here in New York City. We're joined by our brothers and sisters and siblings across the country as they too take action. Today is only the beginning, and we will impeach Donald Trump. We will remove him from office. Impeachment is a tool of the American people. Don't let anyone tell you any differently. We don't have to be lawyers to know that Donald Trump does not care about American people. We do not have to be lawyers to know that Donald Trump has broken the law because he told us just 2 nights ago on live television. He does not care about the American people. He does not care about the highest ideals of our democracy. He has shown us who he is. We don't need any more information. We need to begin this process. So that is why we are calling all of our members of Congress to uphold the Constitution, to protect us, and to reflect the will of the American people. And that begins by beginning impeachment proceedings. And let's be very, very clear. It is so exciting to be joined every day by new members who are coming out in support of impeachment. We are so grateful for their leadership, their political and moral leadership. And we must never forget that is because of us. That is our victory, that we force our members of Congress to take political leadership, and we will continue to put pressure on them. So, Congress, elected officials, you are on notice. We are not going away. We are taking responsibility for our country. We are going to protect our democracy, and we are going to protect the American people. Thank you so much.
When I say people, you say power. People. People. When I say R, you say house. R. R. When I say fight, you say back. Fight. Fight. When I say people, you say power. People. People. When I say R, you say house. R. R. When I say fight, you say back. Fight. Fight. Woo!
Okay, thank you so much. Now I want to introduce a special guest who has come out to speak with us today. You might know her as our local U.S. Congresswoman, Carolyn Maloney. Yeah, you guys know her. All right, so she's going to come on up and give us some remarks. Be sure to check her out on Twitter, Carolyn B. Maloney. And I'd like to welcome her to the stage now.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, hello, everybody, and what a big crowd. And first, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out to be part of this rally today, and especially a thank you to your organizers. Pulling this together is not easy. After carefully reviewing evidence laid out in the Mueller report, after attending numerous hearings, after listening to the concerns of my constituents, and after a good deal of soul searching, I have come to the conclusion that it is necessary to open a formal impeachment inquiry concerning the President of the United States, and we must begin it now. I do not make this decision lightly, knowing full well that an impeachment process could be a painful ordeal for our already divided nation. I say this knowing that even if the House impeaches, the Senate will be the sole judge and jury, and they may choose not to convict. But uncertainty over a verdict should not cause us to forsake our duty under the Constitution. Mere uncertainty should not insulate senators from having to render a verdict based on the evidence, a verdict which history will judge them for, and for which the American people will hold them accountable. I support launching an impeachment process, even knowing full well that it will be difficult to do that and our legislative duties simultaneously. Impeachment will not automatically save a migrant child imprisoned on our border, or add a single unit of affordable housing, or reduce our student debt, or lower the cost of health care. An impeachment inquiry won't automatically repair the damage done to our economy by reckless trade wars or bring an end to gun violence. We must take on all of those issues and impeachment at the same time, and no one thinks that will be easy. I believe with the evidence we have already seen, our duty demands it. And that's why I am calling for investigative hearings into impeachment to begin. First and foremost, and this is what really removed any doubt from my mind whether this is the right decision. Just this week, the president went on national television and admitted that if a foreign government offered him any negative information about an opponent, he would take it. And he said, if they gave me that information, I'd take it, end quote. He said that, and it is disgusting and clearly illegal. He originally said on television that if he was given information from a foreign government, he wouldn't give it to the FBI, which we are required by law to provide them information when foreign governments try to influence us. He is openly courting foreign interference and proving that he is willing to put himself into debt to a foreign power. It shows he has learned nothing from the Mueller investigation. Mueller made it clear that the Russian interference in our election was sweeping, deep, and widespread, both in its use of social media to sway public opinion and in its hacking and dumping of information stolen from democratic sources. Instead of working to safeguard our democracy, this president is actively encouraging foreign governments to work on his behalf. Yes, send it to me. It's outrageous and it's illegal. Outrageous and illegal. Secondly, I believe that President Trump is breaking down the separation of powers, which is a cornerstone of our government, and trying to take the power for himself. He is frustrating every piece, every morsel of congressional oversight at every turn. He is stonewalling. In April, the president announced that he's fighting every single subpoena. Before he even gets the subpoena, he's opposed to it. We have requested documents on a wide range of issues, and there are 6 separate committees holding investigations as we speak today. And I sit on 2 of them. He has refused to produce any document, well over 50 requests from the Committee on Oversight and Reform. He has not only refused to produce a document, he has stopped every subpoena. He has called for the executive branch to. He has tried to stop it with executive power. He has sued. He has taken every single step to keep Congress from having any role in oversight of his administration. And we cannot have a functioning democracy unless the executive branch works with congressional requests in a timely fashion. We should not have to fight for every document. The president's claims of executive privilege go far beyond any norm and clearly violate the Constitution. And importantly, there's precedent for impeaching a president because of failure to respond to congressional inquiries. During Watergate, the 3rd article of impeachment against President Nixon resulted directly from his refusal to turn over documents. Let's hear a little enthusiasm. Thirdly, the president is encouraging. There are more reasons. Thirdly, the president is encouraging foreign interference in our affairs. I believe that he has violated both the domestic and the foreign emoluments clause. There's a case that I'm a part of brought by Chairman Nadler and Senator Blumenthal. We have over 200 members of Congress going forward on the emoluments clause investigation before the courts. The complaint alleges that the president has accepted payments, loans, and regulatory action from foreign governments without the approval of Congress. We have a president who's encouraging foreign leaders to stay at his hotels or lease space from his various projects. Wherever he holds functions or spends time at his private businesses, American taxpayers are footing the bill. Fourth, it is clear, very clear from the Mueller investigation, that the president wanted to shut down the investigation of Russian interference in our election. He did everything from dangling pardons to encouraging witnesses not to testify truthfully, to refusing to cooperate with the investigation, to firing or trying to fire the investigators. He put his own interests above our democracy. And this deeply disturbing spectacle becomes all the more alarming in light of the president's recent remarks indicating that he would welcome foreign help once again in the election if he were offered it. And very finally, they have tried to manipulate our census, required by our Constitution every 10 years to get an accurate count of all of us. It doesn't say just certain neighborhoods, it says everyone in America. And he has done everything to try to rig it by adding a citizenship question. Let me tell you why this is important. It is the census that is the basis of allocating your representation in all of the elected bodies, Congress, state legislatures. So if you're not counted, you're not represented. It is also the basis of over 700 billion, as in B, in federal dollars that go to our people for housing, transportation, food, you name it. So if you're not counted, you don't receive the allocation that is needed for your neighborhood. And what we have found, that his express intent, and we're trying to get the documents behind it, is that he wanted large numbers of immigrant populations not counted. And this was part of a strategy to decrease representation in Democratic areas and increase it in Republican ones. Listen to this. I want all of you to read this report. It was devised by someone called Thomas Hoffler. And I'm going to put his memos up on my website so you can see it and read it for yourself. One of the most horrifying things I have seen in government. Thomas Hoffler is called the Michelangelo of gerrymandering, of drawing maps that benefit Republican candidates. He's called the Republican master of political maps. And many experts agree that adding the citizenship question, 3 district courts said it was unconstitutional, illegal, or both. And every expert has said that it would lead to an undercount of roughly 6.5 million people. That's roughly 7 seats in Congress. And what the ploy is directly aimed at robbing certain areas of representation and funding. And it is an outright attack on the core of our democracy, fair representation. And what's more, members of the administration lied. They lied about this in court. They very cynically said that they added the citizenship question to protect minority rights and the Voting Rights Act, when it was just the opposite. They wanted to deprive immigrants and minorities of their representation. Nothing could be further from the truth. Now that this proof has come to light, they're stonewalling. The president is invoking executive privilege to prevent Congress from seeing any of the citizenship questions that would prove that the question was aimed at reducing Democratic representation in areas, hurting immigrants, and not about enforcing our sacred Voting Rights Act. Any one of these items would be sufficient to warrant an impeachment investigation. But when you put them all together, it shows a pattern and practice of stonewalling, deception, and defiance of all of our democratic norms. It would be just to get, beginning an impeachment inquiry will help us get access to these documents we're trying to get. That alone would be reason for it. But I believe the time has come to begin impeachment investigations into President Trump so that we can get the information we need and reveal the truth to the American people. Reveal the truth, the documentation to you, the American people. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
One more round of applause for Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney.
Well, I went down to the Congress and I took back what they stole from me, and I took back my dignity, and I took back my humanity, and it's under my feet, it's under my feet, it's under my feet. Ain't nobody gonna walk all over me. Everybody, come on. Well, I went down to the Congress and I took back what they stole from me, and I took back my dignity, and I took back my humanity, and my feet, it's under my feet, it's under my feet. Ain't nobody wanna walk all over me. Woo!
All right, all right. I've got another wonderful, dynamic speaker for you. I'd like to introduce to the stage Shavonna Newsom from Black Lives Matter of Greater New York.
Thank you to my allies, my brothers and sisters in the struggle who've organized this amazing event. Thank you to my fellow New Yorkers and Americans around this great nation for coming out and to take a stand to defend democracy. I'm Shavonna Newsom, the Director of Operations for Black Lives Matter, Greater New York, and I stand before you in solidarity and in outrage. We have a Twitter tyrant in the White House. Gone are the days when presidents addressed us from the Rose Garden. Gone are the days when the leader of the free world practiced diplomacy. Gone are the days when Americans were at the forefront of democracy. But I am here today. I am here today to tell you that we are not going to stand for it. Donald Trump, if you had any dignity, you would resign. Our nation has spoken. We don't want you to represent us. Donald Trump, you are fired. Who else woke up on the morning of November 9th in a state of disbelief, in a state of sadness? We knew that America would not be the same, and we knew that there was going to be nothing great about it. My organization, Black Lives Matter, was at the forefront, on the front lines in D.C., protesting Donald Trump's inaugural. Being soaked with pepper spray, shot with rubber bullets by law enforcement. But we knew the fight for democracy must go on. We continue this fight as Donald Trump continues to attack humanity. We were in Charlottesville going hand to hand with white supremacists, the same place my fellow activist, Heller Hayer, lost her life. And Mr. President, I'm here to tell you, those were not very fine people. A president's job is to unite, not to divide. Since Trump has been in office, every marginalized group has felt the wrath of his tyranny. Under his administration, transgender people have been banned from the military and are literally out in the cold. Homeless shelters are no longer allowing them to stay there. A few weeks back, I gave a speech in this very same spot with my friends at Planned Parenthood, calling for a stop to the abortion bans. The Trump administration has forgotten about Roe v. Wade. It's so deeply rooted in capitalism and patriarchy. Women's rights are being violated. Women, I'm a woman, we are being denied our right to privacy, our right to health care, and we're not going to stand for it. As a native New Yorker, a Bronx girl actually, my community is filled with hardworking, law-abiding people. There's nothing shitholed about it. Mr. President, you owe my neighbors, the migrants being detained and separated from their children, and all the people being detained, you owe them an apology. You owe them your job. The brutal rape of Tisha Maley and the horrific lynching of the Central Park Five in the wake were among of New York's darkest days. Amidst these horrors and the fears and the hatred they lose, many showed their worth. For better or for worse, they stood by the victims of these tragedies. As they succumbed to the worst in human nature, One voice stood out above all, one voice with no role. Neither victim nor perpetrator, neither parent or police, not the media or even the prosecution. That voice, a wealthy developer, a real estate developer who would spend a princely sum of no less than $85,000 to tell the world to execute them. A developer who has raised his voice to shine light, a guiding light, his answer to the loss and pain. He said, maybe hate is what we need if we're going to get something done. That man was Donald Trump. Those words uttered 30 years ago, so prescient. Today, New York is in a different place, but Donald Trump, the same man. A man who leads with hatred. A man who divides a nation, an origin, and a skin color. A man whose foreign policy starts and ends with walls. A man who sends ICE to round up the tired, huddled masses yearning to breathe free. A man whose worldview is driven not by democracy and brotherhood, but by development deals in foreign cities and hotel bookings in our very own nation's capital. A man who would own this nation and everyone in it, no matter the cost, even the cost of collusion with foreign governments. This is who Donald Trump is, but this is not who we are as a people. It is not who we are as a nation. We are a nation built on high ideals of freedom and brotherhood and liberty and justice, a nation under one God. That is who we are. This is our destiny, and this is our moral imperative. Nonetheless, this is about nonetheless. No one is above the law, least of all the man entrusted to hold it. We must impeach Donald Trump.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
When democracy is under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back. When the Constitution is under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back. When our rights are under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back. When democracy is under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back. When the Constitution is under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back. When our rights are under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back. 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 Stand up, fight back.
All right, all right. I'd like to bring now to the stage a distinguished guest that we're so happy to have here today, Elizabeth Holtzman, former U.S. Congresswoman for New York. I see that you know her, and author of The Case for Impeaching Trump.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Shannon. Thanks to all the organizers. But most importantly, thanks to each one of you who's come out here today to fight for democracy. This is not a Democratic issue. It's not a Republican issue. It's our country that's at stake. Now, I was on the House Judiciary Committee during Watergate when we voted 3 articles of impeachment against Richard Nixon. I have a niche expertise on this subject. I know what the law is, what the Constitution is, and what works. The Bible says, and I don't often quote it, that there's a time for everything. There's a time to be born, and a time to die, a time to laugh, and a time to mourn, and now it is time to start an impeachment inquiry against Donald Trump. There has been an enormous amount of information and evidence up to this week. We had the Mueller report showing that there was substantial evidence that the President of the United States committed obstruction of justice. More than 1,000 former federal prosecutors say that they would have indicted and prosecuted the president for these acts. What are these acts? Trying to shut down an investigation. What was the investigation about? Possible conspiracy with a foreign power to steal our election. This is about free elections. Nixon impeachment, what was it about? Covering up an effort to steal an election, breaking into the DNC. Breaking into the DNC now. Same kind of thing. We also have, and I wrote about it in my book at length, there are other grounds for potential impeachment against Donald Trump. He kidnapped children from their parents. Thousands of children. Here in New York, it would be a crime. No one's been punished. No one's been punished. He also, I won't go into it at length, but this week made it time to act. There's no excuse anymore. This week, the President of the United States brazenly and openly and shamelessly stood up and invited Russia and other countries to come into this election and get him reelected. This is not a Republican issue. This is not a Democratic issue. This is a democracy issue. Now, there's some people who say, let's wait for the next election. And I want to say, the framers of the Constitution thought about this exact question, because when they proposed impeachment, people got up at the delegation in Philadelphia and said, what do we need impeachment for? We have the next election. And guess what happened? That point of view lost, because the framers of the Constitution understood the danger that a president of the United States could pose to our democracy in any period of time that he or she is in office. That issue was solved at the convention in Philadelphia. And there's some who say, let's not start an impeachment inquiry because it divides the country. Think about what happened during Watergate. Watergate and the impeachment inquiry and the articles of impeachment united America. Why did it unite us? It didn't reunite us as Democrats or as Republicans. It united us as Americans because what we said was that more important than anything is the rule of law. An impeachment inquiry conducted properly vindicates the rule of law. And some say that this is not good for the Democrats. Well, when we started the impeachment inquiry, nobody knew even what impeachment was. Nobody knew what the votes were. And by the way, we never needed the Senate because Richard Nixon resigned in disgrace. We didn't even have to get there. And by the way, he's still disgraced today. He was permanently disgraced as a result of this process. It worked. So let me just say this to you. It worked because the process was fair. It was based on evidence. It wasn't a gotcha moment. It was a moment that we could be proud of throughout our history. That's what we have to do again. How did impeachment start? The inquiry? It didn't start with a report from a special prosecutor. It didn't start with somebody in Congress saying we have to do this. It started when Richard Nixon fired the special prosecutor and said, I'm going to control everything and I'm above the law. And the American people stood up and say, you are not above the law. And Congress, you have to act. The impeachment process against Richard Nixon started with the American people. The House leadership was opposed to acting. The American people said, protect our democracy. And that's what happened, and they did, and I was proud to be part of that. So people, I have to say, it's great that you're here, but we need your friends. We need your neighbors. We need everybody you know to say to Congress, now is the time. It can't be put off. And the people want to preserve our democracy against a president who has only destruction of our democracy at heart. Thank you very much.
All right, let's give another round of applause for former U.S. Congresswoman Elizabeth Holtzman. All right, we are going to move on with our program. Next up, we have Lakshmi coming up to the stage. She's going to do a special reading for us. It's entitled Impeachment for Bigotry and Policy Must Not Be Ignored by Representative Al Green. Come on up, Lakshmi.
Woo! I love my country. For this reason, I support the impeachment of President Donald Trump and recognize the moral imperative to do so for the harm his bigoted policies have caused our nation. While there are other grounds, including obstruction of justice, that merit impeachment, they do not supersede the need to impeach for imposing his bigotry into policy. These policies hurt people, harm society, must not be tolerated, and should not be reduced to the president simply because ill-mannered. Further, these bigoted policies should not be dismissed as mere politics. Let her speak. 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 Let her speak.
We're gonna rise up till it's won. We're gonna rise up till it's won. When the people rise up, the powers come down. When the people rise up, the powers come down. They tried to stop us, but we keep coming back. Hey, they tried to stop us, but we keep coming back. Woo! Listen to women when they speak. You want to start over?
Yes.
All right, let's try that from the top, shall we? All right. So, once again, Lakshmi is going to do a special reading for us from Rep. Al Green of Texas, entitled Impeachment for Bigotry and Policy Must Not Be Ignored.
I love my country. For this reason, I support the impeachment of President Donald J. Trump and recognize the moral imperative to do so for the harm his bigoted policies have caused our nation. While there are other grounds, including obstruction of justice, that merit impeachment, they do not supersede the need to impeach him for imposing his bigotry into policy. These policies hurt people, harm society, must not be tolerated, and should not be reduced to the president simply being ill-mannered. Further, these bigoted policies should not be dismissed as mere politics, not subject to impeachment. If Representative Steve King can be held accountable for his words, President Trump can be impeached for his bigoted policies. For too long, we have allowed our civility to prevent us from confronting the president's invidious incivility with a constitutional remedy that does not interfere with the Mueller investigation. Many have concluded that it is better to defeat the president at the next election than impeach him now for his bigoted transgressions. In doing this, his bigoted policies have festered in our body politic and polluted our discourse to our determinant. His bigoted policies divide and damage the social fabric of our country in ways that obstruction of justice and unlawfully conspiring with Russians do not. They cause unparalleled destruction to our society in the long and short term that will not easily heal. This is supported in part by the Federal Bureau of Investigation statistics, which indicate that reports of hate crimes rose 17% during the first year of presidency of Donald Trump. Again, 17%. Although he may not be the first president to embed bigotry within presidential policy, he is the first to use the bully pulpit enlarged exponentially with social media statements to incite hostility, harmful to society, and to constitutionally protected interests of minorities, women, Jews, Muslims, and the LGBTQ community. The president launched his campaign with bigoted comments about immigrants from Mexico. He indicated that Muslims should be banned from our country and instituted such a policy. He indicated that certain members of the LGBTQ community should not serve in the military and is attempting to implement that policy. He said there were some very fine people among white supremacists, neo-Nazis, and bigots in Charlottesville where an innocent woman was killed. He encouraged police to infringe upon the constitutional rights of suspects within their custody. He attempted to eliminate diversity visas for persons from African, Caribbean, and Central American countries after referring to some of these nations as shithole countries. He instituted a policy to deter persons of color, people that look like me, seeking lawful asylum from countries south of the border by separating babies from their mothers with no thoughtful plan to reunite them. When considered as a whole, the above actions constitute impeachable harm to our society that need not be criminal. This is evidenced in the impeachment of President Andrew Johnson for a non-criminal offense in Article 10 of the Articles of Impeachment against him. President Johnson was impeached for the high misdeed or misdemeanor of speaking ill of Congress. It must be duly noted that the word misdemeanor was defined as a misdeed at the time that Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution was ratified, and is currently defined as a misdeed in addition to a crime less serious than a felony. The framers of the Constitution more than wisely concluded that no one, including the president, would be above the law. They judiciously concluded that, paraphrasing George Mason, no president should be above justice. Justice has a moral component that the law may be void of. Americans have grappled with circumstances in our history where justice prevailed over legality, that slavery was once lawful, but never just, is only one example. The framers of the Constitution provided the people by and through Congress the means to remove an unfit president from office who has caused harm to society despite not having committed a crime. In fact, impeachment, as defined by the framers of the Constitution, was designed for a time such as this, and a president such as Trump. I find no solace in bringing forth articles of impeachment. I've done so because some among us must attempt to bend the arc of the moral universe towards justice. It's not about Democrats. It's about protecting our democracy. It's not about Republicans. It's about preserving our republic. It's about liberty and justice for all in a land that I love. And given our nation's history, I can think of no better way to send a resounding message to friends and foes alike, domestically and around the world, that the United States of America will no longer tolerate bigotry in public policy than to impeach a bigoted president.
All right, let's have another round of applause for Lakshmi. And we just want to address quickly that we respect all voices at this event here today. We love our progressive friends who are here to spread their message, but we want to just reiterate that one of our core progressive goals is to uplift and center the voices of women of color, and we are very happy to have Lakshmi here today to speak. All right, with that said, let's move on. Let's get going with our program. So I'm going to have Alan Roscoff come on up. He is from Need to Impeach, and he has some words for you today.
Come on, Alan.
Hey, you're fired up? Impeach now! I'm Alan Roscoff. I'm representing today Need to Impeach. I'm also president of the Jim Howell's Liberal Democratic Club, which was named after the founding president of the Gay Activist Alliance in 1970. And we're an LGBTQ citywide organization, and we're involved in all the issues that affect the left, that affect the LGBT community, women, race, and peace, and the other issues. And I want to tell you that there are milestones in the lives of people my age. And we go back to the war in Vietnam. We go back to the assassination of John F. Kennedy, to Robert Kennedy, to Martin Luther King, to 9/11. We will remember, people of my generation, exactly where we were when those incidents took place. We will all also, for the rest of our lives, remember exactly where we were when we found out that Donald Trump was going to be president of the United States. In my life, I never, ever thought something like this would be possible. I go back, I became involved in politics because of my allegiance and my being drawn to a woman named Bella Abzug, a former congresswoman. But she spoke on my campus, college campus, about the war in Vietnam, and she talked about racial injustice and economic injustice in the LGBT community. I decided that I needed to join the movement, and I became active and co-authored the nation's first gay rights bill. Everything we stand for, the progress we've made on race, on abortion, on gay rights, peace throughout the world. We stopped the war in Vietnam. It was us. We did it. Congress did not want to end that war. We ended it. We ended the war in Nicaragua. We ended the war in El Salvador. It was the people here today, and obviously the people before us, that accomplished all this. We must organize. We must have hundreds of thousands of people in Washington on the Great Lawn. Hundreds of thousands. We're not doing that. Need to Impeach has been doing a great job. They have gotten over 70,000 phone calls to members of Congress and over 230,000 emails. We need to support organizations like Need to Impeach, and we have to organize in our neighborhoods. We have to organize any and everywhere that we can. Each and every day must be about getting rid of Donald Trump and the goddamn every fucking Republican must be taken out of office. There is no such thing as a good Republican these days. The Republican Party is the party of hate. We have a lot of work to do within the Democratic Party. I happen to trust Nancy Pelosi. However, we need to push her. We need to show her. And we demand that the impeachment proceedings begin now. It is a myth. It is a myth that if we start the impeachment hearings now, that it will rile up Donald Trump's base. What riles up Donald Trump's base is white supremacy. And Donald Trump knows how to rile up his base with or without impeachment hearings. We need the impeachment hearings to educate the world about what is happening to our country under Donald Trump. There is no logic in my mind for us to stall and not move forward. I disagree with the Speaker. We must move forward. Our Congress members in New York are all for impeachment. However, the vast majority of them have not voted for impeachment. The vast majority are not supporting the legislation demanding that impeachment begin. They must be called on the carpet. Impeachment now. Start the process. I'll leave you with our slogan from the Jim Owls Democratic Club. Impeach the scumbag. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, big thanks to Alan. All right, y'all, so we have just a few more speakers for you today. Before we move on with our program, I want to tell you something. If you can get your phones out, there's going to be a call on Tuesday night with Rep. Rashida Tlaib. She's going to talk to us about today's events and also the next steps we can take to push her impeachment inquiry resolution forward. So if you take out your phone and go to impeachmentguide.org, that's impeachmentguide.org, you can sign up for that call with Representative Tlaib. All right, with that said, let's get a couple chants going, get some energy, and we're going to finish up our program.
Yeah, I feel like we need a little more energy right now. I want to shout out my sister Lakshmi one more time. We're going to do, is this off? On? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep, you're good.
We're going to do a song one more time. That's the third down on your left side. We're going to rise up, okay? We're going to try that one more time all together. Ready? We're going to rise up till it's won. We're going to rise up till it's won. When the people rise up, the powers come down. When the people rise up, the powers come down. They try to stop us, but we keep coming back. They try to stop us, but we keep coming back. Again, louder! We're gonna rise up till it's won. We're gonna rise up till it's won. When the people rise up, the powers come down. When the people rise up, the powers come down. They try to stop us, but we keep coming back. Hey, they try to stop us, but we keep coming back. And one more time. They try to stop us, but we keep coming back. They try to stop us, but we keep coming back. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to bring now to the stage Tasha Young from Indivisible New Rochelle, our neighbors just to the north. Come on up, Tasha.
Hi, everybody. What a great day to save democracy. My name is Tasha, and I'm representing Indivisible New Rochelle. I'm here with my fellow resistor sisters, Margaret, Kim, and Mary. Shout out and love to them. Shout out to Justin Hendricks, who invited us to speak to you on this platform today. So my personal reason for wanting impeachment processes to begin for this president is because I want a leader that has integrity and unifies the country. I want a chief executive officer. According to dictionary.com, integrity is the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles. This leader has none of that. Integrity elicits a sense of security amongst Americans, trust and faithfulness, because they implement the state of being whole and united. This president doesn't have integrity. Having integrity means doing the right thing in a reliable way. We're a democracy. We're a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. When Barack Obama was president, in his acceptance speech, he stated that he would be president of all of us, even those who didn't vote for him. This president only caters to his supporters. I don't feel represented, and I don't feel secure, and I don't feel counted in the number of people that matter to him. The women's right to choose when to start a family is being challenged, so much so that in some states, they propose to make it illegal to access safe abortion, even in the case of rape or incest. That is inhumane. That is taking away a woman or a girl's right to choose. That is not liberty for Americans. That is un-American. That's right, keep the government out of our bodies. This posture has been emboldened because of his Supreme Court picks that are anti-choice and anti-women. This president is also divisive. I'm not going to call him a racist because I'm not going to absolve others or the systems that keep racism in place. But I will call him a separatist. There is a mindset within organizations in our country that seek power to oppress Americans that are not white and male. This president has emboldened that dynamic. Rest in peace, Heather Heyer. He refuses to denounce injustices against black and brown people that continue to be a public safety issue for communities of color. He has not done anything to alleviate the devastating practices of family separation at the border, where thousands of children are now missing and some have died. He refused and withheld aid to Puerto Rico, and they're Americans. He has disrespected black women in Congress and the Senate and the press repeatedly and viciously. He's rolling back rights for LGBTQ and trans people. He's separated himself from Americans who are not white, straight, men, have every ability, or transgendered. And there are too many of us for him to get away with that. Let me just also say, he's a horrendous manager. He's trying to run this country like a mom and pop store by employing all his friends and family. 29 people who work for this administration are no longer there. 24 have resigned, including Sarah Sanders. 5 of them were fired. His A-team turnover rate is 69% as of yesterday. The average rate for a CEO is only 38%. Let's not even get started on the criminal charges. 34 individuals, 12 of which were Russian nationals who have charged to change our democracy by tampering with the election in 2016. Let me just talk about action. We're activists, we're organizers, we're resistors of oppression. Start small book clubs. Justin Hendricks has started a movement called the Mueller Book Club. Start reading the report. Talk to your friends, educate your neighbors, have those tough conversations during Thanksgiving and Christmas and birthdays and cookouts. Talk to your Trump supportive family members. I don't have any. But if you do, talk to them. Don't shy away from being uncomfortable. Our survival as a democracy depends on each and every one of you. Now, I got to give credit to Tom Steyer, but Representative Maxine Waters called for impeachment before he was even inaugurated. Because so many times black women are the consciousness of this country, and that was an example of one of those times. Hashtag listen to black women. I saw a really funny meme, and it had her picture on it, and it said, "What's your favorite ice cream flavor?" And the answer was peach mint. I want to start a little chant. I'm going to say, "What's your favorite ice cream flavor?" You're going to say peach mint. What's your favorite ice cream flavor? Peach mint. What's your favorite ice cream flavor? What's your favorite ice cream flavor? What's your favorite ice cream flavor? Let's get out there and do something about this president.
All right, one more round of applause for Tasha Young. Okay, now I'd like to introduce a young man named Carlos Calzadilla Palacio, who is from Young Progressives of America.
Hello, New York! You know, the weather is perfect. It's a perfect time to impeach, don't you agree? Now, we are at a historic moment right now, and we must understand that our actions today will shape our future. We are on the forefront of defending democracy here in our country and worldwide because it is under clear and present threat. We cannot allow the tyrants in the White House to continue undermining the fabric of our democracy. Just look at his actions. He has contemplated instructing the Department of Justice to go after and investigate political opponents. That is something that only happens in dictatorships, and that is where we're heading if we do not stand up. Donald Trump is not above the law. If you read the Mueller report, he has instructed to stop the inquiries against them, obstructing justice. His whole family and himself have been profiting off the presidency. That is not what a democracy is about. He has betrayed the trust of the American people. What's the penalty for that? Impeachment is the penalty. But let's talk a little bit more about how he has violated the Constitution, locking up and caging little children and separating families at the border and putting them in internment camps. That's what we've gotten in 2019. He has sent the military to go to the southern border and gas children and women and families who are looking for a better life. Is that what a democratic president of the free world does? Absolutely not. And there's the threat as well of Donald Trump refusing to accept the election results. In 2016, he lost the popular vote. Let's remember that he does not have a mandate. And what did he do? He lied. He claimed that millions of people voted illegally, and that's why he lost. Now, that is extremely dangerous because what that is signaling is that he's not going to respect the vote in the election in 2020. That means he's going to try and stay in power no matter what. And that is what's called the end to our democracy. Now, as a young person, I want to live in a free and democratic society where we have civil rights, where every human being is respected regardless of who they are, their race, their gender, their religion. Another clear violation of the Constitution is when Trump banned Muslims in this country. And that is another reason why we should impeach. Trump is filling the courts with political right-wing ideologues that have a clear goal in mind. Kavanaugh and others, they understand that the right-wing minority is trying to keep the power that they know they will lose, because we who believe in a better country, we who stand against authoritarianism, we are the majority votes. In the midterm election, 10 million more people voted for Democrats than Republicans. Remember that. Remember that. And they're trying to do everything to stop us from winning. So my message to Congress, to the Democrats in Congress, is to grow a backbone. The time to do things, what is politically right, is what's morally right. Now we see that the vote is so important, making sure that people are not disenfranchised, and that as well is what Trump and the Republicans are doing. They're making sure that poor black and brown people cannot vote, disenfranchising them. Look at what happened in Georgia with Brian Kemp. The person running was also in charge of the election. Democracy is under threat from the local level, from your community, from the city, even college campuses, all the way to the state and federal level. There are forces who want to keep their reactionary status quo agenda and will do anything to stop the will of the people. But what do we say to that? No! Democracy first! Democracy first! Now, thank you so much. Let's make sure we impeach now. Impeach now. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. Impeach.
Let's give him a round of applause once again. All right, so we said this before, but just to reiterate, let's have everyone take out their phones and go to impeachmentguide.com. impeachmentguide.com. And register for the call on Tuesday with Representatives Rashida Tlaib and Al Green and other special guests. It'll be Tuesday, June 18th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, that's impeachmentguide.com.
Power like the power of the people, cause the power of the people don't stop. Say what? Ain't no power like the power of the people, cause the power of the people don't stop. Say what? Ain't no power like the power of the people, cause the power of the people don't stop. Say what? Ain't no power like the power of the people, cause the power of the people don't stop. Say what? Ain't no power like the power of the people, cause the power of the people don't stop. Ain't no power like the power of the people, cause the power of the people don't stop.
Okay, we are on our last speaker, everybody. I just want to thank you so much for coming out, standing in the sun on this hot day. We appreciate you. And I'd like to introduce you to our last speaker today from Credo Mobile, Thais Marquez.
Hello. My name is Thais Marquez, and like all of you here today, I'm here because Trump is unfit for office and ought to be immediately removed. Every day that Trump has been in office, he is targeting, he's deporting, and he's oppressing my people. And every single day that Congress doesn't open an impeachment proceeding against him, he is letting him get away with it. For the majority of my life, I've been labeled illegal, unauthorized, doesn't belong here. And yet, today, I feel more uncertain about my future than I ever have before. Every day, I wake up with a deadline looming over my head for when my DACA expires. And every single day, I have to wake up with news that another child, a child who reminds me of me when I first immigrated here, has died. And that Congress is letting this administration get away with it. We are here today because we are demanding that Democrats in the House of Representatives do their job. In November, we elected a Democratic House of Representatives because we needed them to rein in this administration, to rein in this racist autocrat sitting in the Oval Office. And yet every day, Speaker Pelosi, Jerry Nadler, Hakeem Jeffries, they're telling us to wait. They're telling us to wait for the Mueller report. They tell us to wait for the unredacted Mueller report, to wait for more investigations, to wait for bipartisan consensus, to wait for more, and just wait and wait and wait. But waiting is a privilege. It's a privilege that I don't have. It's a privilege my family doesn't have. It's a privilege that children and migrants languishing in Mexico do not have. It's a privilege that our trans siblings don't have, as their rights are systematically being dismantled. It's a privilege that Black and brown communities don't have. It's a privilege that Yemeni families don't have. We don't have that privilege. I can't wait. We can't wait any longer. I want our elected representatives to know that we are giving them a moral choice. Are you going to defend our communities? Or are you going to stand by as our people are literally dying? This message is for Speaker Pelosi, who is providing a chokehold on impeachment, even as her own party thinks that it needs to happen now. You are one of the most powerful people in this country. You have the privilege to use the mounting evidence that Mueller has provided you. You have the privilege to use that evidence to defend our communities. And I want Nancy Pelosi and every member of Congress tomorrow to know that we gave them this choice. And if an impeachment proceeding doesn't happen, then they have failed our communities. Thank you.
Okay, one last round of applause for all our speakers today. Thank you so much for being out here today. We appreciate you. I want to leave you with just a couple things. First of all, showing up at the protest is so important. We just heard news our international neighbors in Hong Kong have won a huge victory today from being out in the streets. The extradition treaty is not moving forward because citizens of Hong Kong got out into the streets. So don't forget your power. All right. One more thing. We ask that you take another action after leaving here today. Please pick up the phone first thing Monday morning. Call your Congress people. Tell them you want them to vocally, out loud,